What's up, Internet? My name's Nerdy.
And I'm Clever.
This is our kind of late, because we've got COVID, spoiler chat for Moon Knight Episode 2, because we get nerdy nightly.
And we thought we'd share it with you.
That is right. Despite being sick this week, we did watch the episode, and we have some thoughts on it. Clarus, how do you feel about Episode 2?
It's good. I like
strong opinions.
That's why I don't think this show is gonna be like a big standout for me. I don't
really.
I don't have a lot of strong opinions on it. I think that the idea of the character is really interesting. But I'm more interested in what you are telling me from the comics than what I am actually seeing on my television screen. So I feel like that's not really a good sign.
I have seen. I'm a big Moon Knight fan. I like the character of Mark Spector a lot in the comics. It's a complicated character, especially some of his side characters can be particularly complicated in terms of how appropriate they might be. And the way that DID is presented within the comics has always been a little bit tough. It's always hard when you kind of create a superhero with a mental condition that gives him superpowers. Can always be kind of there's always a line that you're riding.
Yeah.
In terms of what's appropriate. And so Moon Knight, there are definitely Moon Knight stories that cross that line, and there are Moon Knight stories that tell that are on that line really well. I think that what I've always loved about Moon Knight is the question of whether this is real.
Yeah.
We brought this up in our last spoiler chat. This episode, again, doesn't ever allow that to happen. This episode is another where everything that is happening is real, and every character in this world acknowledges that it's real.
Yeah. Including his wife.
We start this episode back at the museum after the events of last episode. Steven is fired because he destroyed the toilets. They can't see the jackal on the TV.
Yeah, they go to watch the security
closed captioning
footage.
Closed caption?
The security
closed circuit TV. Yeah. So the jackal's not there, and so they just assume that Steven managed to absolutely
demolish the place.
Demolish the toilets.
That bathroom was wild. I don't know how they think that he is responsible for that, but okay.
Yeah.
And again.
And the fact that the police aren't involved. Like it looks like someone took a sledgehammer in there and he had no weapons on him.
Yeah. And again, this is the same world where the Avengers exist and aliens have landed and
that's true.
And all of these wild just out there things, and this poor guy, they just are he's a little off.
This is a post Thanos world, right? Yeah. And so it is weird that he would be like, what's happening? And then someone's like, oh, it's superhero stuff. And you would think that he would go, oh, right, like the Avengers. That makes sense. This happens in my world. This should be a fairly
normal thing.
Not normal for him, right? Because
No.
he doesn't think he's ever experienced it. But it shouldn't be so crazy.
Yeah.
If the Avengers had been around for, plus the blip, so 13 years of Stephen Grant's life.
Yeah.
Since the Avengers announced themselves to the world. Iron Man would be 15 years ago for him?
Yeah.
That's half of his life, right?
Mm-hmm.
The idea that anyone in this world would be something crazy's happening. Nah, it's I guess that does kind of kill the is this happening vibe of the world, because everyone would just be conditioned. Half of the planet disappeared a year ago. The whole world would be conditioned to great, another Avengers thing is happening.
Yeah, there's a thing. Yeah. And if there is legitimate cause to be worried about safety, you would think there'd be a person you can call, Nick Fury. I don't know, but you know what I mean.
The Avengers hotline.
Well,
no, but it makes sense. It does make sense.
In a world like this, you would have to. Mm-hmm. Hey, aliens just portaled into my bathtub. What do I do?
You call damage control.
Well, but that's the thing.
But literally, you'd call damage control.
Yeah, and
in the Marvel universe, not in real life.
And I don't none of the other Avengers universe things, none of that is even thought about in this, and so it just does not feel like it belongs in this world. It's so strange.
Yeah, it is trying so hard to be its own thing.
Yeah.
That if it stays like that and it never connects, that'll be fine. But it does
Yeah.
feel weird if Moon Knight suddenly becomes part of the larger MCU later. It is going to be weird that in this show, it seems like they almost ignored.
Yeah, that'll be weird.
Because it almost seems like Moon Knight works in the same, or that Stephen Grant works in the same museum that like Cersei teaches at
Oh my god.
in
could you
Eternals, right? Because it's
imagine?
like the same like London museum. I'm sure it's
Yeah.
there's so many museums in London.
No, but that's the thing. And I wish that I wish that they would either connect it or not in a definitive way, because I sit there the whole time just thinking about it.
Yeah.
And I find it personally a little distracting, and obviously I don't want to spend our entire spoiler chat talking about that, but it is something that is constantly on my mind while I'm watching this.
No, I think that's 100% fair, especially because the MCU has conditioned us to be like, oh yeah, like Stephen Moon Knight and Mark Spector has kind of been like lightly referenced before in the MCU, right? In Winter
yeah.
Soldier, they kind of reference it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's funny. I hadn't really thought about that.
It is like constantly on my mind while I'm
Mm-hmm.
watching this, because this is not our universe, right? A lot of the reactions to what is happening here are very much like our like normal universe where magic doesn't exist. You know
Yeah,
what I
as
mean?
if the last 15 years Iron Man hadn't been flying around the world.
Yeah, and Thanos hadn't snapped half the people away. Like,
Yeah.
did Mark Spector dust or not? Do we know?
I don't know, but it would actually be really interesting if they played with the idea that like Mark Spector didn't have multiple personalities before the snap.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Here's the thing. The show doesn't seem to want to play with him having DID very much. It very much seems like he is Mark Spector or Stephen Grant,
Yeah.
and that Mark Spector will go away if he accomplishes his mission.
Yeah, he's like, I'm gonna leave you alone, but I don't really understand that, because like he has a wife and a life that
Yeah.
he's trying to protect, so that doesn't really make sense either.
I don't. The first episode playing with the idea that Stephen Grant doesn't know about all of this was fun, but now I want them to kind of start explaining
How
the
does
main
he?
character. I think that the problem with episode
Yeah.
2 right now is that I still don't really. The main character doesn't know anything about himself. And so I don't know anything about the main character.
Yeah. How does he have a job? How does he have like a social insurance number? Like,
Does he have a passport? Like,
Who
'cause
is his
he finds Mark
mom?
Spector's passport.
that he
Why,
keeps leaving voicemails for? Like,
if he never hears back from his mom, why doesn't he think that that's weird?
yeah.
Right? Like, there is a number of questions about the main character that I'm like, I don't know who this guy is.
Yeah.
And
And that makes him hard to relate to.
if Mark Spector takes over and becomes the main character, because there's only 4 episodes left, right? So like,
Yeah, right.
how many episodes are we gonna get with the actual main character of Moon Knight? Right? Like, that's a weird question. So let's get back into this episode. But I think that you're absolutely on the right track on what I think might be disappointing. I know that a lot of like hardcore Moon Knight fans are disappointed by the show.
sure.
And we'll get into some of the things in this episode that I think are disappointing to that community that I kind of put myself in. And I'll bring them up because they're things that I was a little bit disappointed in.
It's you asked how I felt about it. Those are the
No. You're 100% on the money here. So he goes to his storage unit, finds storage unit, has a quick conversation with Mark. Khonshu shows up, so he like runs away.
Yeah.
Because he's like, I'm never gonna let you have this body. You kill people. Because Stephen Grant, has a conscience, I guess. And so he runs outside, and Layla is there on her motorbike. He like trips
Yeah.
and falls in front of her.
She's like, wait.
She
Mark?
knows
Like-
that he is Moon Knight,
Mhm.
but doesn't know that he has DID.
Yeah.
Which feels like a really weird, like, if you were going to share aspects of your personality with your wife, it feels really weird to be like, I am the avatar of an Egyptian god because we killed those mercenaries together in Egypt, but I'm going to hide from you that I have a dissociative identity disorder.
Yeah, and and half of me is like, okay, well maybe it's new, right? Maybe Steven showed up very recently, but Steven has a job and a life and presumably a bank account and like lives in a place. Like, it's just that doesn't make sense either. So both of those things, like, I don't get it.
It feels like the show wants. It kind of goes back to some of my complaints about the Wheel of Time TV show, where I was like, it feels like the mystery box is so important to the show
Yeah.
that the logic of the characters is less important than the way in which the mystery is unfolded.
Yes.
And so I do agree with that. I think that Moon Knight struggles a little bit under the like secrets.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I need I don't need so many secrets.
Well, and I have to care about the secrets. Like, if the people don't make sense in the show, like I said at the beginning, I was like, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
Like, I have, I don't know, if I wasn't doing content and, like, making this stuff, I might have, like, after episode 2, moved on to another show.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting is that, so then they get back to the apartment. Steven is like, no, I'm Steven, and she starts to kind of buy it a little bit.
Yeah.
But then the police show up, but they're Arthur, Ethan Hawke's, the villain's characters, lackeys.
They're
And so they're the
Scales.
Yeah, they're Amit
Scales.
They're disciples of Amit, right?
Yeah.
And so they take Stephen to a part of London that is also Amit people.
And
so he also
then?
has a village.
Yeah.
And he has a section of London that he runs and no one notices.
London, like the most expensive place you've ever seen.
Not just the most expensive place in the world. Outside of China, the most densely watched city by CCTV.
Yeah.
No, this is like a real world thing. Outside of China, London is the most closed captioned, closed circuit television. What is CCTV? It's closed circuit TV. Yeah. The most watched city in the world outside of China, I believe this is true. This might not be true now, but it was a few years ago, is London. There is a way to watch everything. And did I find that out from either Luther or Sherlock? Probably. But it's true in one of those shows.
I did see like an article about it several years ago. I
don't think I'm making this up.
No, you are right. I don't know about the most watched, but like as far as like cameras in the city, like per person, it
is estimated that there are 500,000 CCTV cameras dotted around London.
Yeah, it is wild. And so the fact that this guy is able to like just buy up a couple blocks of London that aren't being watched, where he can like shake somebody's hand
and they just die
drop dead
in the middle of a street in London. I was like, what?
Yeah. And he talks about, he's like, yeah, this place, this neighborhood used to be like real bad, and then we came along and
we
now
fixed
it's great.
It and nobody noticed. And like that's what gets weird about it to me, right? Because I bought the village. I was like, oh, there's this town that's like a cult
in the mountains.
In episode 1, I totally bought in.
Totally.
And then in episode 2, they're like, oh, but also we have like a sub cult and that was where I was like, what?
Yeah.
But then also at the end of this episode, it doesn't feel like this subcult is going to matter because I think the rest of the show will take place in Egypt.
I think so as well.
So it feels like this was just a like thing to move on from, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know. It was so odd.
Yeah.
Like I found it so strange, especially because like people talk, you know what I mean? If this like cult existed in the middle of London, people would know about it, right? Like what's his face? Franco goes to an island and has his like cult yoga stuff.
Are you talking about Jared Leto?
Sorry, Jared Leto. Not yeah. Sorry, Jared Leto. I don't know where I got that from.
Sure, but Jared Leto is at least a celebrity. That is like slightly different.
But you're in the middle of London. How do you not draw attention to that?
I don't know.
How is nobody talking about this?
It also just doesn't feel like relevant to the show. Like it just felt like a like location for them to go to.
Yes.
And
that wasn't too far, so it was believable.
It didn't it doesn't provide a problem for the heroes to solve, and it doesn't teach us anything new about the villain.
No.
Because we already know about the village. So
he's rich and can own a lot of property in London.
Yeah, it just brings up questions.
Yes.
That the show doesn't seem at all interested in answering.
No, because
and so the
we
episode
get to Egypt.
Right. And so the episode episode 2 just kind of feels like there's really fun stuff here. And I really like Oscar Isaac's performance. I like the girl who plays Layla. I like Clamowy. I like Ethan Hawke as the villain. Like the acting is great. I think the CGI for the most part looks pretty solid.
I'd say it's like pretty decent.
The fight scenes are fun.
Blow me away, but the suit looks incredible.
Yeah, but the like logic of the world that they're living in just at no point seems to matter. It's like in the first episode when Ethan Hawke basically attacks Stephen Grant at work, and then he runs away, and then it cuts to him working
Yeah.
at the place he was just basically attacked.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, what? Why did he just go back to work? Like,
yeah.
and why did Ethan Hawke just leave? Like, what was happening? This show wants to have all these cool things happen, but then it wants to have very little logic tying it all together.
Yeah.
And I'm curious where we're going now, because I don't, as someone who reads Moon Knight comics, I care about Mark Spector.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen Grant, the like billionaire, the like aloof billionaire identity that they've turned into this like meek British man identity.
Oh, in the comics.
Yeah.
Oh, I was like,
Stephen Grant
rich?
Stephen Grant is kind of like a like parody of Bruce Wayne, kind of in the comics. At least in some of the ones I've read, Stephen Grant is not like the main alter, right? Like Mark Spector is. I care about Mark Spector. I wanted a Mark Spector story. It seems like the show is more interested in creating a Stephen Grant story that is about a version of Stephen Grant that isn't from the comics. He's just an invention of the show.
Yeah.
And
I can see why fans would be not happy with that.
Well, and
it hasn't been done well yet.
And it gets into the Mr. Knight suit. My favorite Moon Knight suit is the Mr. Knight suit. I think it looks rad. And the way it looks in the show, awesome. But it was a joke. Yeah. And like Mr. Knight is an alter. It's not Stephen Grant's suit. Like Mr. Knight is another identity. Which is why I'm thinking that the show isn't interested in doing the actual like doing multiple identities.
Right.
It feels like it's Stephen Grant and Mark, and that's it.
Yeah. It definitely feels like that.
Mr. Knight is like a street level identity in the body that alter. I don't know if I'm saying any of this wrong. I'm so sorry. I do not want to be like disrespectful to the DID community because I want to be
of course
upfront about that. But Mr. Knight is this like street level, like a Daredevil style, like goes and beats up bad guys in his nice white suit, right?
It's a lot of dry cleaning.
That's not a joke identity. And the show treated it like a joke. Like, why are you dressed like that? He looks cool. Like, I don't know why the show wanted that to be funny.
I didn't think it was that funny.
But that's my point, right? Like, it doesn't feel like there's very much from the Moon Knight mythos that they pulled into this in a way that, as a Moon Knight fan, I like.
Yeah. And
so I just find myself kind of confused as to like, what about Moon Knight did the person who made the show want to tell? That's what I don't know yet. And I think that's why I'm confused. Yeah. I don't know what it is about Moon Knight that drew this team to make the show. Because if I was making the show, this is not how I would tell the Moon Knight story.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't get to what's interesting about the character. And it's kind of just another amnesiac Marvel story. Yeah. Which we've done. Like, Captain Marvel did the I'm the reluctant hero who doesn't know I have superpowers thing. We just did that with Captain Marvel. Yeah. And are doing it again here. And it is not the best reviewed Marvel story that they tell. Yeah. The amnesiac superhero is just not something that does particularly well for them. I like Captain Marvel.
Tough to do.
Yeah.
And that is a really difficult thing to do. And I'm not surprised that I'm not surprised when it falls short because in terms of storytelling, there's just so many really easy pitfalls. But yeah, I don't there's no question here. It's just
there's a lot of questions here.
Sorry, I mean there's no question in terms of in terms of what's real and what's not.
No, yeah, everything's real. Because Arthur was the former avatar of Khonshu. Yeah. And Layla knows about the suit and knows about Khonshu.
And is going to be the next, and Khonshu wants her to be the next Moon Knight.
I like that. I like that a lot. I actually thought that was really well done.
Interesting. However, it makes no sense with Mark being I just got to do this one job, and then Steven, you can have your body back.
Well, he's lying to Steven.
Okay.
Yeah, he's lying to Steven, 100%. He's not going away. He's just trying to... That's Mark Spector lying to Steven, which makes sense to me. Him doing anything to protect Layla makes this whole show more interesting. That is arguably the best part of the show to me, giving Mark a reason to be reluctantly working for Khonshu. The problem with it, for me, is that every identity we have in our protagonist doesn't want to work for Khonshu.
Well, and yeah, that is weird, first of all. And also, on top of that, we were given a glimpse of, of Steven not having control, but like still kind of being there. And he was like, this is horrible.
Yeah.
This is a terrible experience. Like, I can't live like this.
Yeah.
And the show didn't really seem to want to take that seriously or dive into it at all because Mark is lying to him about
I don't know.
giving
I felt
his
like that
body
scene
back.
was pretty honest.
No, the scene
that scene
itself.
That scene was raw.
The scene was great.
Yeah.
The scene was great, and the idea of that is really interesting. But the tone of the show overall doesn't have that same kind of like raw like depth to it, and it feels out of place. And I really don't know what Disney is going to do with this idea that there are two people sharing this body who like have unbearable living experiences when they're not in control. You know what I mean? Like that is infinitely fascinating, but I do not think that this show has the chops to really do it justice at this point anyway.
Yeah, I wonder how much of it is just the like content restrictions of it being made by Disney holding it back from going further, right?
Well, because I would rather have more of that than Khonshu showing up and scaring Steven all the time. You know what I mean? Boo. Like, I'm like, okay, I get it. You're a big scary man with the bird skull. Like,
yeah, the Khonshu of it all is weird, right? Because it's like, why does Khonshu show up like a horror movie?
Yeah.
It's
every time.
Like, is Khonshu
like, hey, buddy, here's
enjoying? He should just be there.
Yeah.
But like he like specifically shows up like in flickering lights.
Yes.
But not
Flicker,
always.
flicker.
Like sometimes he shows up he's just standing on a corner and you're like, okay. Yeah, it is odd that like Khonshu seems to be making the like active decision to jump scare Mark or Steven.
Steven, yeah.
When they are working for him.
Yeah.
Like
if you want somebody, and here's the thing, you are old enough, you should know that if you want somebody to do something for you, scaring the crap out of them like that when you don't have the power to really kind of like deliver, it's not gonna work.
Well, and Arthur, he already knows that like Ethan Hawke's character Arthur left his service, right? Presumably for the same reason. Like, leave me alone.
Like, dude, you keep showing up and with the lights flickering and it's dark out and you're freaking me out. I can't do it anymore.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. I like this character a lot. I was very excited for the show, and it so far it just doesn't really.
It's fine.
It doesn't really work.
No, it doesn't. Like I said, if it was just me watching this, I think after this episode I probably would have like moved on to another show, right?
I definitely think this is the most. This is to me the worst start for any of the Marvel shows so far.
Yes, because Loki episode 1 was a little bit rough, but then episode 2 was freaking amazing.
Yeah.
And then all the other ones, I think, like, not all the other ones. I think Wanda and Captain
Winter
Phelps
Soldier.
and they were like pretty strong, like consistently. Hawkeye had some ups and downs for me, but
Hawkeye though the difference is Hawkeye, the Marvel tone.
It works
for
Hawkeye.
Haley Steinfeld and Jeremy
Absolutely.
Renner. So even when Hawkeye had
Absolutely.
like some like ups and downs plot wise, the two of them were so solid tonally within those two Hawkeyes. Like the buddy comedy of those two characters worked through all 6 episodes.
Yes.
In a way that like the Marvel comedy doesn't quite mesh as well with Moon Knight's character.
No, and that's what I mean.
Yeah.
You have this scene where they're like in pain talking in a mirror, like it is weird. It doesn't sit right. Like,
well, and then and you'll have literally like Mark Spector be like, where did you come up with this suit? This looks dumb. And it's like, it looks rad. It looks so cool. And Mark Spector has bad taste. And then like the next scene, like Ethan Hawke will grab somebody's hand, like an old woman's hands, and they'll just die.
Yeah, and not Ethan, and Steven is like, oh, so you guys you kill children then?
Yeah, that was so dark, right?
Yeah, I was like, oh my God, are we gonna like talk about? No, we're not gonna talk about Bruno. It was just one of those things where I was like, that is like a legitimate question. And Ethan Hawke is like, man, well, sacrifices.
I appreciate that, like, that moment. I think what's weird about it is, like, the show has moments that are dark like that, and I appreciate that. Like, I think that's interesting. But then it can't, like, the whole show can't commit to that tone.
Yeah.
And so the show wants to like pull itself out of that tone. And it's the moments where it tries to pull itself out of that tone that don't work.
Feel the weirdest.
The moments that are in that tone work.
Yeah.
I
Because
agree.
those are actually interesting moments and questions and stuff that I have in it. I would rather have more of that from this show than that's a stupid suit. Like what?
I wish this was made by FX. In the in the universe that Legion was made in. Like Legion was adult in a way that I think would have worked for Moon Knight and handled mental health in a way that I felt was very intelligent and like appropriate
The
tonally.
movie Legion?
No, Legion is
It was,
the
like, the movie
X-Men
about-
TV show
Okay,
about
never mind.
Professor X's son.
Gotcha. Okay, I was like,
and-
the Christ movie.
No. It's 3 seasons. It is it's incredible. Like
Cool,
Legion
cool.
is like one of the great television shows of the
Yeah.
last of the 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
I would put it on like the same kind of list as like The Sopranos and The Wire and Breaking Bad. Like it's that level of quality in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think it's probably still the best comic book based television show ever made.
Wow. Okay. High praise.
It's really, really good. Aubrey Plaza on that show is majestically good.
But very different tone than
Yes.
Disney and this whatever they're trying to go for. I don't know.
But
it's
like
not working.
Legion wasn't afraid, like I was saying earlier in this episode of the spoiler chat, like Legion wasn't afraid to question whether David, the lead character, was actually experiencing what he was experiencing.
Yeah.
Like the what was happening and whether it was real was the question of the whole show.
Yeah.
Whereas this show wants you to know that it's real, but also doesn't want the protagonist to know what's going on. And so that it's missing the mark.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say. I feel like we're kind of going in circles now. We've kind of gotten to the center of our feelings on it, but
Yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up.
yeah, it's tough. We're gonna go to Egypt next week. Maybe things turn around. Like we're gonna keep doing these spoiler chats. I'm curious to see like maybe they stick the landing really hard and everything. This is
Yeah.
one of those shows where the explanations in the second half of the season could make a rewatch. Like it could make the first 2 episodes better
Maybe.
if they were to like give us answers that make the rewatch more interesting.
Yeah.
The potential's there. It's just right now, I just kind of am watching it. I'm trying to piece together what is happening, and it's the logic just isn't very consistent, and that's a shame, I think,
Yeah, it is.
because there's a lot of really good pieces,
Yeah, and the actors are really talented.
and the suit is incredible.
It is.
The Moon Knight suit is both Moon Knight suits so far have been just beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, apparently, the Mr. Knight suit is already a walk around character at Disney. I know. Maybe we'll see it in May.
We will.
Actually, I don't know if we're gonna go to that side of the park.
You don't think so?
Doesn't matter. If you like this video, like and subscribe to the channel. If you don't, totally understand. Hit that dislike button. Leave mean comments down below because the algorithm god is hungry and we must feed her. If you want to follow us around the internet, it's super easy to do. I'm at Nerdy Nightly.
I'm at Claris Polaris.
I just realized I'm wearing the shirt.
Yeah.
Oops. As always, y'all, do something nerdy tonight.
Bye.
Bye.